Hello, everybody. Welcome to Expression Pass here on Boss Rush Network. I'm your host, the enlightened, excited Eddie V. Joining me is the one, the only, Bossman himself. You guys love him, Mr. Corey Darren. Hello, bro. Him. What's up?
Hi, Ed. It's like
Hi.
It's like we started podcasting again, like regularly, semi-regularly again, and now we just can't stop.
Exactly.
But yeah, so a little behind the scenes stuff here. I just it's a Thursday night. It's 11 o'clock. I just got done recording a 2-hour Tower Casuals episode, the Destiny show that I do, and I told Ed, I was like, we need to record something after this because we're about to change the way Expansion Pass works and the way that Nintendo Pow Block and some of our other content work a little bit.
Yes.
And it's important because like we're going to I don't want, because I know other people are about to listen to this and be like, what are you talking about? But I want everybody to know that we're going to talk to everybody that's involved with Pow Block first before we make any major changes. But we kind of have like an idea. We're approaching 300 episodes of Nintendo Pow Block. I have made the decision to leave Arsenal X, and we're kind of putting it on a hiatus a little bit. This is the first time anybody's kind of hearing this aspect of it. Just because like I want to go. The long short of it is I want to go back to Nintendo Pow Block. It was the biggest regret I've made since we've done Boss Rush. I think I've made a lot of decent decisions. I think I've made a lot of bad decisions. Selfishly, that's the decision that I've regretted the most, is leaving the hosting chair of Nintendo Pow Block. Now, I'm not going to come back and host Pow Block. That's not fair, right? Ed, you're the host of Pow Block. I just want to be there. I want to be there and talk with you and do Nintendo content, because what I was telling LaRon and Stephanie before we recorded Boss Rush yesterday was I kind of had a maybe it was in a text thread that we're in. I don't remember which one. I talk and text so much to so many people. It's just like I can't keep it all straight. But no, maybe it was in the Pow Block chat on Discord. I don't remember. I've said this in multiple places. The point is like I kind of felt like, as much as I am proud of everybody at Boss Rush, I'm so proud of everybody. I think everybody's doing a great job where they're at and what they're doing, right? Me personally, I sat down and was like, I'm really like not having fun in the position that I've kind of put myself in. Hosting Arsenal X, like I went to host it because it needed a host, right? And I thought that was the best decision for the team at the time. And at the time it was me and Jesse, who was really passionate about Xbox, right? He's kind of taking a little hiatus too, from stuff. I miss Jesse. I hope he comes back in some capacity soon. And then we added Stoy, which was like a great ad. And then, the problem with Arsenal X is just like, I love my Xbox. I really do. But I don't love it the way that like a true, I bleed green Xbox fan loves it. Like I like Gears. I like Halo. I like Destiny. I like some of the stuff that I get through Game Pass. I love the way the store and the online, like I like it from a technical and a user integrated perspective, right? That's how I love my Xbox. Like it's outside of my Switch, it's my preferred console, really, honestly, to play games like Destiny, right? And games I can't get on Switch, I play there. Even some games I can get on Switch, I play there because they just, let's be honest, they run better, right? And I started buying them there more and more because I was on the Xbox beat for us, right? And covering Xbox and running the Xbox show, I felt like I needed to do my due diligence and really cover Xbox the way somebody should cover Xbox who's running an Xbox show. Excuse me. I had a little tickle in my throat. But I kind of sat down and I was like, I'm not like, I wasn't enjoying it the way that we enjoyed Pow Block, right? And like, I was like, well, maybe I'm just kind of doing a lot and I just need to take a break once in a while from certain things and, you know, whatever. But then when we did the direct recap show a couple weeks ago, and then we did that episode of Pow Block, and then you were on Boss Rush, and like the way that we podcast is so different from the way that I think the rest of the network podcasts, because we've been doing it together for so long.
Yeah.
That after that Pow Block, we recorded what, Thursday? Was it Thursday that we recorded? No, we recorded.
It was that Friday.
It was Friday that we recorded it.
Yeah, because we did the direct that Thursday.
Right. I looked at, like, metaphorically, looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, you know what you want to do, and like I had a conflict of like, I know what I want to do and I know how I want to do it, but at the same time, I don't want to take anything away from anybody else, right? Like you, Dan, and Jacob, and you know, even David, until he kind of took taking a leave from Pow Block to focus on writing and his personal stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been great. I love it, but there's nothing more that I want to do than like. I made a list of things that I really love to talk about, right? It's oh my gosh, this cough just won't go away. It's Nintendo, it's Destiny, it's Game Pass, and it's, you know, standard definition, which, you know, when you came to visit me, we talked about standard definition, and that was what, 2017.
Yeah.
And we tried to do it a couple times, a couple different ways, and it just didn't really work out. But now it's like, it's in a flow, right? And so like,
yes,
I made a list, like, what do you want to do on Boss Rush? How do you want to define your position on Boss Rush? And I was like, Nintendo, number 1, Destiny, number 2, Game Pass, because I enjoy Game Pass. I enjoy what it offers. And standard def. That's in a perfect world, that's what I would be doing. And I kind of, like, you and I started talking, then me and LaRon and Stephanie started talking, and then me and Stoy started talking about stuff. And I'm trying to position everything to where I can come back to Pow Block full time. Because as a creative, that's where I want to be. I want to be on Pow Block. I want to be talking about Nintendo with my friends. I want to be podcasting with you. I want to get back to the old days, right?
Yeah.
Because like when we did the Pow Block episode, it was such an old days style episode, and it felt so good.
It was our conversation just flowed naturally, you know, and it was because when we did it, we didn't plan news. We didn't really have a topic, but we were still talking stuff about the direct, but it was just like the way that we bounce off each other, the way that one idea could start and we build on it. And, you know, even when we got into the news and we had our discussion about it, yeah, we had some differences, but we were seeing eye to eye with each other. And it just sounds like this is the conversation that people need to hear. Mm-hmm. In a sense, and it was so old school that even when we were done talking and recording, we just felt back. We're just like, man, I missed this. We haven't did this in almost in years, you know. And it's just like when we started talking and recording, it's just like this feel. Yeah, it is feeling like old times, but it was just like, man, we still got it.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, we kind of picked up right where we left off, and like even after that episode posted, like I think I've been gone long enough to where we've probably gotten new listeners, and like they know the routine of the new Pow Block. But like when we posted the episode, like you were getting comments, I got some comments, and you know the tweet got some comments, and we both got DMs of like, that is an old school Pow Block episode, and like everybody kind of seemed to like really like it, and that made me so happy that people like still like the old school style of how we used to podcast together.
Yeah.
And you know, when I come back, it's not like we're gonna do the old school type of podcast, right? Like Ed and I have kind of talked about, you know, kind of giving the show like not an overhaul, but just like a little refresh, right? I know Jacob's kind of shown some interest in changing some things up so it doesn't become stagnant, and I know Dan has shown some interest in, you know, doing things so it doesn't become stagnant. And so like we've kind of come up with a small idea that, I mean, we're not going to change right away. I want to make sure everybody's okay with you know what you and I talked about, because like I don't want to change anything without getting a team approval, right? That's just like mean, first of all, to not include the team in decision making. But also like we've kind of decided that like we've always wanted Expansion Pass to be like the secondary Nintendo show, like the bonus show that you get weekly from the Pow Block crew.
Yes.
And we kind of came up with this idea of like, what if it's kind of like our secondary Pow Block episode every week? Because like that's what we kind of used to do. Remember when we used to do 2 episodes a week for like a hot minute? I mean, we used to just hop on when we were bored and podcast. Like we would do 3 episodes a week sometimes just to like, so we could hang out and talk about Nintendo. To be honest with you, we didn't even care if people were listening. And so Expansion Pass, like if you're watching the video of Expansion Pass, this is the last time it's going to look like this, right? We're going to kind of give it a Nintendo flair. We're going to kind of give it a proper, you know, it's going to be like the Direct Recap show, Expansion Pass, and Nintendo Pow Block are going to kind of form like a trinity of shows, right? The way that Boss Rush Podcast, Standard Def, and After Dark kind of form a trinity of shows. And then, you know, whatever LaRon decides to do with Crossroads, right? Like,
yes,
we've kind of talked about ideas of him absorbing some Xbox stuff. Maybe we've even talked a little bit about a Nintendo segment of Nintendo Pow Block where, you know, if somebody has something outside of the realm of Nintendo they want to talk about, maybe we discuss it for a little bit, because I know Galatrad's playing what's that new MMO that's
Lost
out?
Ark.
Yeah, and that's really grabbing him, and maybe he wants to talk about that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, maybe Xbox made an announcement, or maybe, you know, I'm enjoying Destiny right now because the Witch Queen just came out. Maybe there's news about that. Like, I won't bring it up every week, right? But like if somebody has something they really want to talk about that's not Nintendo specific, I think we could discuss having like a small segment on Pow Block where, hey, this happened. It's not really Nintendo related, but it's kind of important to us. And
and I know for me, before you go on, Corey, I think opening up Play with Power probably could do that, because I'm like, all of us is not always playing Nintendo. Like, you know, me and you, we are well, pretty much everybody on Boss Rush play different games on different systems. We're not just all one console or one platform. We all kind of play stuff just everywhere. And I think Playing with Power could go or should go beyond Nintendo, because sometimes those games, they may come down later down the line on Switch, but if you are interested, you want to talk about it, go ahead and talk about it. And I think Playing with Power should be able to handle that.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I play a lot of Destiny. Like, that's my go-to game, right? I mean, if people who've been listening to this show, even before Boss Rush, even before Nerds Gone Rogue, right? Like, when Destiny came out, I was playing Nintendo, I was playing Wii U, and I was playing Destiny. That was like, it wasn't like it's not like I was playing PlayStation 4. No, I was playing Destiny, right? I didn't play anything else. Remember that the whole year the Taken King was out? Like,
Yeah.
Like that was the literally the only game I played for like a year and a half,
Yeah.
aside from like the Wii U stuff that we were kind of talking about at the time. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I'm the point. My point is that, you know, even if Nintendo exists in expansion pass, which I actually think that might be a better fit, right? Even if like,
Mhm.
you know, if Dan comes on one expansion pass, or, you know, Galatrad takes a week off from streaming and comes on, or we even pull from the community like Jack. I know a lot, some of our feedback, people really enjoyed your 1v1 with Jack and having him on, or, you know, just pulling people from the community and coming on and talking about, you know, the news we missed, or a Nintendo segment, or just other things, right? Like that's
Yeah.
I think that people who play Nintendo are still interested in some things happening outside, and, you know, I think that's something we could explore. Um, but yeah, my point is I miss Nintendo Pow Block, dude. I've missed it so much, and like I know I already said this, but like the last two episodes that we did together, three really, it just like it reminded me of how you were the hype, I was the realist, right? And like somebody would always come in and, you know, kind of sit in as a third chair for a while. You know, like we started with Adrian, right? Like he sat in for a
Yeah.
while, and then Kyle sat in for a little bit, and then you know, we've kind of had like a rotating third chair, and I think we've really found like a great cast at this point. You know, everybody
Yeah.
loves Jacob. People love Dan's insight on RPGs, right? And you know, people love David, and I know David's kind of taken a break from Pow Block for a while, you know, and but like people like him, right? It's like we found a great cast, and we found a great community to rally behind our love for Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I know we talked a little bit about it on Boss Rush, and I know they talk about it on Crossroads quite a bit. That like our community is Boss Rush, whether people like it or not, is built off of Pow Block, right? Yeah, the Boss Rush
Hmm.
podcast is the flagship show, but our community, our friends, our teammates, everything was built off the back of Nintendo Pow Block. What we built with Nintendo Pow Block. And like I rewatched episode 219 probably 3 times, 4 times in the last couple months. And like it's super emotional because that's when I handed it over to you, and I was like, that was soul crushing. Like I mean, not that I didn't think you would do a good job, but the fact that like I was handing you the reins to our show and I wasn't going to be a part of it was soul crushing.
Hmm.
And like it was so hard to deal with for a couple months, and then like I kind of glazed over because we started doing other things, and, you know, Tower Casuals kind of like it didn't fill that void completely, but like it was like a, you know, if you're like a cocaine addict and then you have like some caffeine after recovery,
wow.
like, you know what I mean? Like it's I don't really know how else to
You're
yeah,
substituting.
I don't really know how else to describe it, but, you know, like it you know, and it's like a little something to like get you by, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, Tower Casuals is like a great show. I love Destiny. I could talk Destiny for hours. We just did, right? We just talked about the Witch Queen campaign only the campaign for 2 hours, and it was great. But like nothing hits like we had on Nintendo Pow Block, and I felt defeated, you know, just to kind of like open up a little bit. Like I felt defeated. Like I was going to go do this other thing without my best friend, without the person that helped build this amazing place that we have, you know, this digital space that we all share, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Before you go on, Corey, I will say this. You know, I've learned a lot, and what I mean by that, everybody, is just like I'm still learning. You know, um, I wish I could record the show. I wish I could just do all the technical stuff that everybody does. I'm so thankful for Jacob. So thankful for LeBron, for you, Corey. Just like all the streaming stuff, I wish I could do I should get a computer that should be able to do this stuff. But I learned how to edit the show. I learned how to, upload it and get stuff on time because it was a lot that was on your back. And I've already said that I want to help. And yeah, I made some mistakes, but I'm not going to learn if I don't make mistakes, if I'm not taught and everything. Again,
Yeah,
it's
but
it's
the thing is too with like the thing is with Boss Rush, people are always learning. We're here to like teach
Mhm.
people. I mean, look at all the documents that David has created for the writing team and learning about
Yeah.
writing and how people have grown in the writing space and just the amount of documents. I'm still finding out about documents that he's created. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is insane." Like I mean,
Right.
he's a teacher. Like he could probably whip it out. I mean, he probably whipped it out in like 20 minutes. I don't know. But like to me, it's like that's like weeks worth of work that he has put in to just creating the documents alone and then turning around and like creating this great writing staff and people to help him do the copy editing. And,
Yeah.
Stephanie's doing a great job. Mark's doing a great job. Block's doing an awesome job. Right. And Dan, like the whole writing team is just killing it. But like that, sometimes I think about Boss Rush and I'm like, we're way too big. I don't know if I can handle all this. I don't know if I'm selfishly still kind of in that mindset of like I don't know how I can handle all this. But then like speaking of learning, I've kind of learned how to pass off responsibilities to others who really want to do this part of this or this part of
Mm.
that. And it's been a learning experience for us, but Boss Rush is about learning
Yeah.
together and growing together and learning who we are as creative people or writers or podcast hosts or podcast producers. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you say you want to do all these things and learn all these things, but like look how much you've grown in terms of writing, in terms of hosting, right?
Hmm.
That's where you've grown. It doesn't matter. We have people that can edit and produce the live shows and stuff. We
Yeah.
don't need that, you know?
Well, I think for me is when I say I want to contribute or I need to contribute, I really do, and I think this time like throughout the months and stuff, learning on how to edit, learning on how to write and get things like I've learned from Google Docs. I'm just like, oh, it's correcting my stuff, it's showing me what's wrong and stuff, and that has helped me, from the writing aspect, get stuff together. But I'm like, getting stuff formatted and just making sure that we have a good show when people watch it and listen to it, like that's been a big help to me from the technical aspect, because I'm just like, I said that I wanted to do this and now I get a chance to do it and I'm learning. I just really want to say thank you for allowing me to make mistakes and teaching me here and there. And it actually let me learn more of my editing equipment, my software stuff, because I'm just like, okay, how do I learn this stuff? Because it's not this program is not teaching me when
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to learn it. And then when I get a chance to mess with things and figure it out and trick stuff and make it look good and stuff, it really helped me to be like, okay, I can edit a show or I can make stuff look good. Um, Now I just need to do the thumbnails, but
I mean,
that's something that takes time.
but I mean, look at what we've done, right? I mean,
Hmm.
there's nobody else I would have trusted with Pow Block, right? I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's still our show, and like
Yes.
I I'm we're approaching our 300th episode, right?
Hmm.
We're what 16 episodes away, 15 episodes away, right?
50.
What do we just do?
Yeah.
284, I
Five.
think.
284. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
16.
And that's
Man.
no small feat. I mean, we had a little snafu with episode 200 and we had to like delete it because of reasons that I don't really feel like getting into again here.
Hmm.
When we were starting to grow Boss Rush, we had a couple instances with a person we were working with, and so we like don't want to be associated with that person. So like we lost episode 200, and that kind of sucked because we had shirts, we had, you know, all this stuff ready to go, and we were going to make them and sell them and wear them and stuff. And like 200 was a big deal, right? We like every group that we had, well, not every group, I guess we'd only been part of like Nerds Gone Rogue and then like, you know, DNA stuff, but like 200 was a huge milestone for us at the time.
Yes.
Right? Because like Nerds Gone Rogue ended at 179, I think. And, you know, like we said, Arsenal X is going on hiatus at 177. And like we just had all these like little mishaps here or there, or like, you know, things just ended in whatever. But Pow Block was the consistent. Pow Block was the, you know, constant. And then like when we ended it to start the Boss Rush podcast, well, the NX show at the time where we were merged the shows, that was heartbreaking too. But I mean, at least we still got to be together and continue it. Right.
Right.
And then when we brought it back, it was like, oh my, thank God we brought it back. But I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm rambling, but I feel like it all makes sense in a way. You know what I mean?
I think I will say with Pow Block, I'm like, we learn with our ups and downs, and we try things, we see what works, what doesn't work. We take all the feedback, we discuss things, and all of that helps to build a better show, you know. And when we always go back to talk about when people say they want to start a podcast and stuff, we always bring this up, you know. All of that stuff takes time. I'm like, and look at us. We're about what 5-6 years doing Pow Block.
Well, I mean, longer than that. Our first episode posted in 2016, so I mean, 2016, right? I don't remember.
About 6 years. We're going on 6 years.
I'm gonna look.
But
apologies if you hear old Pow Block theme song music because it's real bad.
But we grew and we evolved, and you know, it's. I always feel like this. You know, when I podcast with you, like I said, we just got that flow and everything, and I know I am the hype, and yes, I give thousands of hot takes, but it always shows my passion. It always shows.
June 21st, 2016 was our first episode of Pow Block together. Because remember, there was those small episodes that I did beforehand before we even met, like the DNA Pow Block segments. Because like that's why it was called Pow Block, because it was just like a 15-minute segment on my old YouTube channel. Because like nobody wanted to talk Nintendo, and I was like, well, I do. So, you know, long story short, here we are. But
and so. No, we evolved, I shall say. Just to wrap it up, we evolved in this expansion pass. It's just kind of with a little bit of a preview of what we're going to be doing in the future. And it's kind of like not the next step of what we're going to do with Nintendo Pow Block, but what you guys can somewhat expect.
I think it's just taking it to the next step and really like capitalizing on our individual skills, right? Like Galatrad has a huge personality. I want to capitalize on that. I want to capitalize on his excitement the way that we capitalize on your excitement in a different way, right? Like you guys are like two sides of the same coin almost, where like your excitement is like one way and his is another way. His personality is huge, and then like me and Dan are kind of like even keeled, kind of just like, you know, the straight guys, for I guess lack of a better term. I know that means something different now, but you know what I mean. Like that we're just kind of like even keeled, kind of like laid back kind of people who are just excited to talk about Nintendo. And so I think we're going to have a good balance with that. Do we want to talk about what we're doing with Expansion Pass first, or do we want to talk about what we're thinking about Pow Block first?
Let's talk about what we're thinking about Pow Block, and then we'll get to the Expansion Pass one.
Okay. Yeah, because I think Pow Block won't take as long. So, yeah. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
You ahead, start.
Okay. So what I've always wanted to do is kind of my favorite podcasts are the Giant Bombcast and Sacred Symbols. Now, I'm not a huge PlayStation guy, but I like the way that show is structured. It's very us to an extent, where like the first part is just kind of like randomized conversations, whatever. We kind of just talk into the intro of the show, like kind of eliminate housekeeping altogether, almost in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like their housekeeping is like one sentence. I'm like, oh, that's probably something we should have thought about doing. Obviously, like Galatrad's intro is like perfect, right? He does a great job with that pre-recorded intro. But then like we just kind of like do some banter, like just some pre-show banter, or like maybe even use a Boss Rush banter as like a pre-show kind of discussion type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of talk about, obviously, like I think people like playing with power at the top of the show. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I normally with playing with Power 2, that's like the last thing on the show. It's because I asked everybody how their weekend was, like just to let people be like, hey, we start on a Monday, so we have like 6 days of content that we are engaging in, and probably over the weekend we probably can talk about what we've done. And so when we come back Monday, we could just give people a glimpse of what we did in our lives for the weekend or throughout the week and stuff. And maybe it is funny stuff. Maybe it's something that's serious, and maybe it's something that we just something that we've been writing or thinking about and just getting off our mind and stuff. So I think playing with power is just like, it's just to cap everything off because it's so quick, so we can get into the end part of the show.
Yeah.
And if your intro is, because I normally now I'm kind of integrating some of the Nintendo stuff with the intros to be like, if you are playing something, go ahead and speak about it. Like I've been speaking about Dying Light 2 and Horizon and stuff. Like I've been speaking about games outside of Nintendo that I've been playing, and not just do it for a quick bit, because I don't want to make half the show about that. I just give people an update of what I've been playing and thinking about that before we get into like Snack Tendo. Or even sometimes I talk about what I've eaten before I actually get into the snack that I really want to talk about. So my intro stuff, our intro stuff is just really just to give people a heads up to be like, this is how we are and this is what we engaged in during this time that we was gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I my thing is like, I know some people are one way and some people are another, and it's kind of like 50-50 down the line of like how long a podcast should be, like, oh, well, I don't want to listen for more than an hour, or I want like a 4-hour podcast because it gets me through my day faster. Right. And like, I'm not saying we should have like a 4-hour podcast, but like on at least in YouTube comments, and I don't know how much I should be judging YouTube comments, but it seems like the thing that people complain about on YouTube, at least, is like there seems to be like a stopwatch on the conversation and the conversations feel rushed. I don't want to have a podcast where like our conversations get cut off because, we have to move the show along. Now, granted, if we start talking in circles, like I've learned to kind of pick that out, right? Of like, if we start really talking in circles, then we gotta move on, because like nobody's making any progress there, right? So, but like if we're
me and you have going to circles.
I know, but like I mean, if we're having like a great conversation, and like and that comes down to like news editing too, is like kind of ranking the news. And like, if we feel like here's the news stories, like we have 5 or 6 listed here. Like if people feel like we've been going too long, or somebody just wants to cut the last story or whatever, like, or what we were doing on Arsenal X is like we would have like the headlines, which were like the 2 or 3 biggest stories of the week, and then the wrap up, which is just like a bunch of smaller stories. And if anybody has anything small to say about it, then we just comment on it.
Yeah.
That's what we were doing with Arsenal X, and it seemed to work fine. It seemed to work out good. But at the same time, like, I don't really want to like shortchange any of the stories either, you know?
Right.
I realize not everybody wants to podcast like us, where we could sit here for like 3 or 4 hours and talk about nothing, right?
Right.
Literally nothing. We could talk about that stupid pirate Fire Emblem rumor for 2 hours, and like, I mean, maybe Dan would eat it up because he loves Fire Emblem, and I also love Fire Emblem, so maybe he would talk about it for 2 hours with me. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I get that people don't want a podcast like that.
Yes.
But at the same time, like, I don't want to shortchange the show. I don't want to have like a time limit on the show. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like that's been the biggest struggle too with me, is like, personally and selfishly, like, I look at a show and like, well, it's got to be 90 minutes. So what do we do here? What do we do here? It's got to be under 90 minutes. What are we going to do? I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I personally, I don't want to do that anymore. And like, not to speak for you, but podcasting with you for 6 or 7 years, I don't think you want to podcast that way either. You know?
Right.
And so maybe we bring that up and see how we can like find a good compromise for that. But like, you know me, I don't mind doing a 2.5 hour show.
Right.
I prefer it, actually, personally. But I know a lot of people don't.
And most of the time that when we are doing the show, it does get close to 2 hours, at least.
Yeah.
You know, because like we will have a good conversation with news, or if we're doing a list episode for Doc Mode, you know, like pretty much like most, because I don't time Doc Mode. Doc Mode could go as long as we need it to before people be like, okay, I'm getting tired, we need to move on, and then I'll be like, okay, let me wrap it up and everything, because I think Doc Mode is pretty much like almost 30 to 45 minutes itself.
I don't think Doc Mode needs to be that long though either. I mean, let's be honest. The reason why like topics of the show exists on some of these on some of our shows is because like we're filling time that we used to fill with listener questions, right?
Yes.
But like, you know, with when we, not to keep bringing this up, but like when we left Nerds Gone Rogue, there was like a clear divide of like who went where, right? And we lost most of our audience because they went the other way, you know?
Yeah.
And it was sad. Like, it was, but like, I mean, we're still growing in a different way, and it's great. But like, I want to get back to the point where like people are interacting with us. People are giving us questions, right? And that we can read at the end of the show, where we could read 2 or 3 questions and have real conversations about stuff that people are genuinely interested in. And maybe we open the Pow Block Twitter back up, right? And start using it, which...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Which I was like thinking about the other day. It was like, if we do that and have some way for people to communicate directly with Pow Block, right? I don't know. That's something I was thinking about the other day. Is like, I still feel like closing down the podcast specific Twitter accounts was a bad decision, except for the simple fact that we have so many podcasts that like, we don't have enough team to run them.
Yes.
But I have created a buffer for Pow Block and Boss Rush Network to kind of hopefully remedy that, to where we could schedule posts instead of like, oh, well, you know, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, I know you guys tried that Twitter takeover thing for a while, and which is like an interesting idea, but I don't know. We'll talk about that. That's like further down the road. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But before we move on with the listener question thing, and
and I want to present this to everybody so they can hear on why I sometimes don't ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a me thing. I kind of feel like with the listener questions, we were getting the same ones over and over every week. And my
Well,
thing
that's when we have to curate them, right? And be like,
yeah,
hey, we got a lot of questions, but we answered them the week before. If you want your question read, please be more like not interesting, but more, unique.
I used to say they could be challenging, but like think outside the box
Mm-hmm.
with your question, because I think you can ask a question about a Nintendo game or even connect some non-Nintendo stuff. I every time that I go on a podcast or they ask for listener questions, I always think outside the box of asking the host and the co-host, because I want to hear a discussion that you are not prepared for with the knowledge that you know. Like really, like sometimes really think outside the box, and whatever knowledge you do have, yeah, you can put it on to use, but then change the way that you think about it. I I love Luke Lore from XE from his podcast
Mm-hmm.
XEP, and I always challenge him, and he always comes with an answer. I always challenge him things about Microsoft, and I'm just like, thank you for answering my question, thinking outside the box. I do it to LeBron on Crossroads, sometimes, like in other people, like even Sean Capri and stuff. Like I asked them these things outside the box because I want to hear your answer for something that you're not prepared for, and sometimes that leads to good conversation. That
Mm-hmm.
leads to maybe a topic of the day or a topic of your podcast. Maybe you want to ask your other listeners in your community on Discord about that, because that really opens up, instead of just saying what games you think is going to take game of the year. Like that's a great question to ask, but we get asked that question a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
I've shout out to Beyond WSAD, but I asked them, what does it take to make a game of the year, and should only certain publishers receive that? Nick was just like, that's a great topic to have to discuss on our podcast. That's the kind of stuff that I want to have if we're going to do listener questions. Now, that's not for everybody, but I think, sorry about that, but I think, but I think that is something that would make a great conversation to have, because people. Ooh,
You all right
sorry
there,
about
Ed?
that.
You
Yeah,
you all right?
let me get to the drink. Take over, Corey.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I just like, I don't know. I feel like Pow Block has been ready to evolve in a way for a while. Like
Yes.
taking that next big step, right? Like we launched our Patreon, right? That was a big step. Dan's in the process of monetizing the website and getting affiliated with Amazon, which is a big step. Like, we're making these steps, and Boss Rush Podcast has made a pretty decent step forward, although I think we're ready to take the next step, which I think, like, last night's episode was a pretty decent step forward, right? Where that's supposed to be like a generalized conversation podcast, right? Where we kind of just have a conversation about games and things that are happening and talk about kind of what we're playing and that's it, right? Like, but it's supposed to be like a general kind of evergreen style podcast. And we are finally to a point where, the episode that you were on, and then last night we got to a point where we were having, and even the podcast that we had Blonde Girl Games on, a general natural conversation without having to like segment out the show, right? Where we're like, okay, let's talk about what we're playing. Laron, what is your topic? Stephanie, what is your, like a robotic kind of style podcast. And like,
Yeah.
we've finally gotten to that point where our conversations are natural and generalize. It took us 20 episodes, but we got there, right? When we brought it back, right? Because we kind of put it on hiatus because we didn't know what to do with it, you know? Kind of like,
Yeah.
kind of like where we're at with Arsenal X now, you know, in a different sense. But we brought it back, and, you know, this new iteration, it took us 19 episodes to get it to where we kind of wanted it to be. And it's in the last 3 episodes have been great. And so I think Boss Rush has kind of made that tiny step forward, and now Pow Block is time to, like, you know, take that step to where we are approaching 300 episodes, not 3 episodes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, we're ready. I feel like the show is ready, and I want to be a part of that because this is a big milestone for us individually, you know, you and me specifically.
Yeah.
So.
And I gotta say this, I hope everybody enjoyed my time on Boss Rush podcast and on Crossroads. I know I could be a bit much, but I think that makes the natural flow.
Everybody's always interested in what you have to say, Ed.
And I have some.
Whether they agree with you or not is a different story, but they're always interested in about what's about to come out of your mouth.
I know everybody be like, "Oh Lord, it's on the podcast. Let me listen to it."
Yeah, but just to kind of like, I don't know if we're wrapping up this part of the Pow Block specific conversation, but like,
yeah, we can wrap it up.
Nintendo Pow Block just feels like home for me, you know, and it felt like, I don't know, I don't want this to sound like I'm being selfish, but I am being selfish, but for like, it's not like bad intentions or anything, but like, I want to be on Nintendo Pow Block. This is my show. This is our show, Ed. And the fact that I've been away for so long, aside from an occasional like appearance here and there for like 60 episodes, has really been defeating to me. Like, and again, selfishly, it's been defeating for me in a creative sense. You know?
Yes.
When I started podcasting, all I wanted to talk about was Nintendo. It's like all I wanted to talk about, you know, and in Destiny to an extent, right? But like, Ed, we did like 50 something episodes on the Wii U, Ed. The end of the Wii U's life cycle. We did 50 something episodes on the Wii U, Ed. There's nothing to talk about in the last year of the Wii U's life cycle aside from Paper Mario Color Splash. Right?
I still watch our top 25 list of Wii U games.
Yeah, which is a great episode, and I think we should do that again at some point.
Oh,
Maybe we'll do that for like an expansion pass.
Yes.
But I'm trying not to get emotional here because I know people have already made fun of me on After Dark for getting emotional for certain things, especially the last episode that went out for free. But
oh, that episode.
Yeah. But Nintendo Pow Block has just always been my biggest regret. And I was afraid that, like, I've been away for so long, I didn't want anybody to think that I was just coming back to, like, take it over because I'm a selfish asshole or anything, right? Like, you and I even talked about that, and I put it in the Pow Block chat on Discord, like, hey guys, I'm going to be honest with you, like, I just feel lost without Pow Block, and it's driving me crazy. And basically, are you all right, Ed? Are you going to, like...
No. Something feel like dry on my throat, and I'm just like, okay, I'm trying to get liquid.
Why don't you drink some water? There are other liquids than caffeinated beverages.
That is true.
As I have a box of energy drinks under my desk.
And I forgot to get the Monster, but I'm just like, I don't feel like them checking me out. I'm just like, I'm about to go home. I should have got some ice cream though.
And you know, I was like, I said like, I didn't. There were like several times that I just felt like I didn't even like I like thought about even starting another Nintendo podcast because I missed Pow Block so much, and I was just afraid that like this iteration wasn't like not accept me back, but kind of be sour, you know, because I'm always overthinking things and always over like analyzing everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the fact that like Jacob and Dan and David like all kind of like weren't that way really meant a lot. And I know that kind of sounds stupid, but it meant a lot that like, you know, that they said the things that they did. So I mean, I'm happy that we get to do this again, you know. And
yes,
Ed's still gonna host, guys, don't worry. But I'm excited for like our future for Pow Block.
Yes.
So, anyways, just the last couple of thoughts on kind of like the show moving forward in an extent. Like, obviously, the news we're still going to do, Docked Mode we're still going to do, questions if we have any we're going to do, and then Game Fact Advance I think we're going to kind of like start keeping track at least a little bit.
Well, Game Fact Advance we're going to hold off.
Are we?
For a bit. Yeah, we're going to hold off for a bit. I think if we come back to it, I kind of want to bring it back.
I think it's a great idea. I just think we don't really know how to execute it.
Yeah.
At least the times that I've been on, because I know like I've been on and I brought one, but Dan had it like literally like the month before.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I don't listen every week. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sorry, guys. I listen, just not every week. And I just didn't catch that we had already done it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we could do Game Fact events, but I kind of want to do it in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the idea, and maybe we'll brainstorm that because we have Boss Rush Spring Break coming up where everybody's going to kind of have a week off, but I think that Monday at least we're going to have a content meeting and kind of go over like, okay, here's what's happening, like here's what's happening with Crossroads now, like they're kind of absorbing Stoy and some Xbox style content. Mm-hmm. Here's what I'm doing, here's what you guys are doing, just kind of give everybody the floor and kind of give some feedback. I know Celeste has kind of started the doc of like feedback for people who listen, which is good, I guess. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm excited to come back to Nintendo Pow Block, and I'm glad that like people seem to be okay with it, outwardly at least. So
yes.
And I missed podcasting with you, and like I always want to do more stuff with Jacob. Like we've been planning this timeline show for like 6 months, 8 months it seems like, and we just haven't gotten around to it. So
yeah,
man. But
podcast content.
But Ed, I'm glad we're kind of taking this fresh start with Pow Block and get to talk Nintendo again, because like I missed it, and I hope that like we get to do it the way that we think it deserves to be done.
Yes.
So.
So EXP.
Yeah, let's talk EXP for a little bit.
So Expansion Pass is going to be just like me, Corey, and maybe another guest, or sometimes different guests come together, and we're going to talk Nintendo, but sometimes, we're gonna catch up on news that we missed that week for Power Block. So there may be because there sometimes are some hot stories that drop after Power Block happens, like the Nintendo Direct,
Mhm.
how that's just dropped and everything, and we want to react to it, but sometimes schedule conflicts affect things. So we're gonna try to do it on Thursdays, um, where we just catch up. We talk about two news stories, and we make flow into a topic. And then just plug our Twitters or whatever, and then head out. It's going to be a good, interesting show that you can listen to and be laid back. Now, we're still trying to figure out the release schedule for it, which is going to kind of take some time, everybody. But once we get that all settled, we'll be able to have those episodes out for you. Now, we're still going to do 1v1s. We're still going to do talk the walks. And a lot of that content is still going to be coming in later and everything. Because I do still have some EXPs that I've recorded that we're going to get out in the future that you guys could listen to and check out. But it's going to be a lot of times that me and Corey just sit down and we just have these, and sometimes we might not even do a news story. We might literally just talk about Nintendo or something that's happening in Nintendo and just for maybe 30, well, probably 45 minutes or whenever we could go on
30
to
or
have that
45
discussion.
minutes, Ed. When will we ever podcast for 30 or 45 minutes?
Maybe
the first segment of the episode is 30 or 45 minutes.
Okay.
But sorry, I had to fix my camera. So sorry.
Oh, no.
If you're watching the video version, you're gonna see me, and then you're gonna see a really big version of me, and that's just got to deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay,
go ahead.
I mean, I thought we kind of talked about like doing like a different style of EXP.
I mean, we are. I'm just giving the people like a heads up.
Yeah.
That like sometimes the show's going by to be changing.
Yeah. And
in case
I think that like the way we want to do like interviews and talk the walk and stuff is the way that we kind of used to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Boss Rush Presents is a good idea. It's a good catch-all kind of thing. But I just based on feedback, I think people are like excited to just hear interviews when they come out and talk the walks when they come out. I don't think they care that it's not every week. Now, I mean, I could be wrong, right? But I think that people are excited to have, especially, I think a lot of people are excited to have Celeste back too, right? Like, I mean,
yes.
I know she's like really itching to come back and interviews. Not that you're not doing a good job, Ed, but Celeste is like really excited to come back and do interviews and stuff.
Yes, she has that magic.
Yeah. So it's I don't really know what we're doing there yet, but I do know that after I think we have EXP through March actually on the Boss Rush Presents feed, which is fine. Like, but this EXP and moving forward, expansion pass is going to live on the Pow Block feed.
Yes. Either
Saturday or Sunday morning, depending, or even Friday. Maybe we can get it out fast enough on Friday. But, it's part of Nintendo Pow Block now. Like, we want it to be our bonus show. We talk about our Patreon and how do we incentivize people to like do early access stuff. All of our stuff comes out free anyway, but like, how do we incentivize people to come join us for early access? And obviously we're not going to make Nintendo Pow Block early access, but we can do EXP early access. We can do After Dark and Standard Def early access. The Boss Rush podcast is technically early access. Like we feel like a lot of people put a lot of hard work into Boss Rush's content, and we want to, have a way for people to support us, directly. but Ed and I have always wanted to do a bonus episode for Pow Block, like the way that like have like this big bonus kind of style thing for Nintendo and celebrate our love for Nintendo, and whether it's like missed content after, because like we record Pow Block on Mondays and it comes out on Wednesdays. Well, what happens to the stuff that happens on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we come around and record Expansion Pass. Maybe there's a big news topic that came out, or like the Direct recap show, right? Like that's something that we did the Thursday after the Direct, or it's just kind of like a catch up / let's talk more Nintendo and be more deliberate in what we're talking about style things.
Yeah.
And maybe even throw a Nintendo's segment in there. Maybe.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
So that's what we're going to be doing with Expansion Pass.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this because this is something that we've always wanted to do. We've tried it, like when we did try it for a while, right? Like we had expansion pack for Nerds Gone Rogue, and it was pretty successful for us when we did it. But then, like, obviously, like we kind of fell into the trap of like we're doing way too much, and I have no time.
Yeah,
and that's kind of where we're at now, to an extent of like we're doing a lot. I don't think we're doing too much, but it's getting close, and so we're kind of trying to find ways to like innovative ways of like being efficient with our time, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I want like Friday, Saturday, Sunday to be me time and game time, because like with everything else going on, I just during the week and during work hours, I just like I want to focus on getting work done, but
you need time for yourself.
I mean,
it's a game to relax.
I do, but I also want to like not be the guy who's always like, oh, well, I'm talking about a game that I played, but I only played for like 20 minutes because it was the 20 minutes I had before I went to bed.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I feel a little bit. I'm not burned out. I just would like to have some time for me to do, like, to play games so I can talk about them for real,
Mm-hmm.
And like I think that's the point where we were getting at on Arsenal X. At least me. I know Stoy has, he does EXP Cast and Arsenal X, and that's it, right? Occasionally he'll do standard definition with us, right? We just did the Indiana Jones series, but and I know he's doing Mass Effect with LaRon, but like I want to be able to like really talk about the games, right? Like I restarted Xenoblade Chronicles 2 because obviously 3 is coming out soon, and like I want to be able to really like be invested in that game and not be afraid to play it, because I know I only have like an hour here and an hour there, and I know I have to go play Destiny with my friends at this time, and I know I have to finish this thing in Destiny at this time, or I have to go, try to do something else for this other thing that I'm doing, or I have to go watch this movie for standard definition. You know what I mean? Like I want to have time. I just want to have time to sit down, enjoy, and like we've talked about doing other content here too, right? Like,
yes,
the podcasts are great. I love podcasting. I want to take the next step in content creation. I want to do Giant Bomb style quick looks. I want to do Let's Play shows. I want to do more Mario Party parties, right? Like, when Mario Kart DLC comes out, I want to be able to stream that with the community on Friday nights and be like, I don't have any commitments tonight, or Friday or Saturday. Like, I don't have any commitments tonight. Let's get the community together. Let's do some Mario Kart races. Let's do some Mario Strikers tournaments. Let's do some Smash Brothers.
That's gonna be so much.
Like, those are the types of things that I want to do, and I've always dreamed of doing with the Pow Block kind of circuit of content, and we don't get to do that because we're too especially me, I'm too invested in in 100 other things.
Mm-hmm. That
like by the time the weekend rolls around, I just want to go to bed, or like I have a date, a Destiny date with my friends, right? Like that's, and we've kind of limited that to one night a week now too, because like my one friend is getting married and our other friend is only available one night a week. So like we've kind of done that, but like, I don't know. I had a real heart to heart with myself, like, you know, like I said at the top of the show, and like, I made a literal list of what I want to do creatively, personally, and I've been slowly like kind of turning that list into like where I fit into Boss Rush now. And yeah, it's sad that Arsenal X is on hiatus. It is. I think we need an Xbox presence on the show or on the network.
Yeah.
It's just not going to come from me. You know, I think that Standard Definition is a great show, and I love that show, and it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. But also, I gotta let other people do their versions of it too, you know. And Nintendo Pow Block is just, it's the show that we started together. It's the show I want to be on. If everything else went away tomorrow, that's the show that would still exist.
Yeah.
And that's the show that I want to be a part of. You know what I mean? And not that I hope anything goes away tomorrow, but you know what I mean? Like, I just... Nintendo, especially like since we started doing this show, has always just been like comfort. It's home. It's comfort food. It's my happy place. You know what I mean? Like, not to sound corny or cheesy or whatever, but I mean,
we wouldn't be here without it.
I mean, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be friends without this, you know? Like, yeah. I miss it. And I know, like, my opinions on Nintendo differ from others in a lot of respects, right? You know, anybody who listened to this week's Boss Rush podcast can hear that, right? Like, you know, I don't think their online stuff is very good. I think their support of third parties, they're losing support because their system isn't strong enough, that kind of thing. But like, Nintendo provides something that nobody else does in a lot of ways. And that's why I think people keep coming back to Nintendo. It's why they've survived for so long in this space. You know, they're innovative, they're creative, they know how to utilize their properties well, right? Like, they know what they're doing in a lot of ways. They don't know what they're doing in a lot of ways, but they know what they're doing in a lot of ways. And there's nothing like exploring a new Zelda game. There's nothing like exploring a new Mario game. There's nothing like the excitement I had when I mean, like when we watched the Breath of the Wild trailer, or when we you know, when we saw the Metroid reveal, or when we saw, like, for me, when I saw the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 3 reveal, or when, like, the moment we talk about all the time is the Doom and the Wolfenstein reveal.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, those games aren't exactly, Switch isn't exactly the system you want to play those games on, but it's still a great thing to be excited about, you know? It was exciting because Nintendo was getting these huge third-party games that we never thought we would see on the system again.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that the experience that they were getting on the Switch, people were happy with. You know, it wasn't all about celebrating the biggest graphics and, you know, the tight cinematics, and no, people were just like, this experience is for me and I'm enjoying it. I finally get a way to play some great games in a way that is accessible to me, that fits, that works, you know?
Yeah. And so, like, not to just keep talking in circles, because I know we're starting to get that way, and I'm really excited and like another cheesy word is like humbled that everybody is happy to have me back on the show, and I'm happy to be back and ready to take the step I think we should have taken 60 something episodes ago, and taking it to the next level, and you and me and our friends talking about the company that we love in a really exciting way and meaningful way.
Yes.
And then taking expansion pass to the next level and involving our community and involving our friends and having great conversations about certain things on Nintendo, and taking direct recap to the next level and doing more with our community. Like that's the goal. That's the idea. That's how we've always kind of envisioned it, and I think now kind of relaxing and kind of this huge weight taken off my shoulders and really kind of focusing on what I want to do and kind of what we've always wanted to do with Nintendo content is like really exciting. It's really exciting. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. I'm just going to keep going around in circles and probably cry at some point. So please start talking.
Well, Corey, you want to get into a quick news story? I think that's going to lead into a really good conversation.
I suppose.
So Square Enix is looking into more HD 2D remakes of SNES classics. The story comes from Nintendo Life. The president ordered us to make more use of HD 2D. Square Enix is looking to follow up the likes of Octopath Traveler, Triangle Strategy, and Live Alive with more HD 2D remakes. It has been revealed. The report comes via Japanese publication Famitsu, which revealed that the developers of the upcoming Switch title Triangle Strategy have stated that Square Enix president Yosuke Masuda wants to see more SNES games remade using the style, which refuses 2D sprites with 3D backgrounds, to create a unique diorama effect. Interestingly, ActRaiser has already been remade for Switch in the form of ActRaiser Renaissance, but it was created by external studio Sonic Powdered, and does not adopt the HD 2D style. So I kind of want to ask you, because Live Alive is a game that was for Super Famicom and never came to America. So, we're getting that style. And Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy are new IPs that takes the style and implement it. We're going to be seeing it with Dragon Quest 3 with it, which a lot of people probably haven't got a chance to experience from the NES days. But a lot of people are looking forward to this, and Chrono Trigger has came up, and it was even trending at the time, even after the direct. And I kind of want to ask you, do you think this is the right step, and do you think this new style of artistic graphics is something to be welcomed in a sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the HD 2D graphical style is amazing. Like, I think Triangle Strategy looks awesome. I think Octopath Traveler was like, remember when the Switch was revealed? That was one of the first games they revealed for the Switch, and everybody was like, "What is that game? That game looks amazing. That game looks awesome.
Yes.
What is this art style that they're using? It's so cool." And remember, the Dragon Quest 3 remake is being made in this art style as well.
Yeah.
I think any like NES or Super Nintendo era RPG could be remade. Like any of the Final Fantasy games could be remade in this for sure. Any of the Dragon Quest games could be remade in this for sure. I struggle to find anything else other than like an RPG that could be remade in this. Like maybe like, I don't know. I like the first thing that came to my mind honestly was Breath of Fire, but that's Capcom. So like, I mean, like that would, I think Breath of Fire would look awesome in this art style. But like, I don't know, like the Mana games, maybe like Secret of Mana could probably look really cool in this art style.
Which is funny because Secret of Mana already got remade.
I know. but
it still didn't come to Switch.
I know.
That's literally surprising.
I think the big ones that people are probably pointing to are like Final Fantasy 4 and 6, and maybe like what was the weird one that the Final Fantasy game that came here, Mystic Quest?
Yeah,
it was like
that was
baby's first
Final Fantasy
RPG
2,
almost.
something like that. Yeah, I know I've been saying this. Secret of Evermore needs to come.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know why I say that name, Secret of Evermore was the only game that Squaresoft West made. Squaresoft created Western development here in the USA just to make that game, and after it came out, they ended up closing the developer. But it was because of the success of Secret of Mana that Secret of Evermore happened, and I think that will work inside the style and everything. It's kind of because if you look at it now, Square Enix kind of have, in a sense, a three-way kind of style of doing games. You got the triple A stuff like Final Fantasy 15 and Final Fantasy 14 and
I think the boldest thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you brought up Final Fantasy 16, 15, and 16, and I always thought like the boldest thing they could do the boldest thing that Square would do, and they're never going to do it because it's mainline Final Fantasy, but like Final Fantasy 17, and they show an HD 2D game, and it's just like 100-hour 2D pixel RPG.
Yeah.
And like you could like do hand drawn cutscenes to tell the story, right? I mean, it could still be fully voice acted or whatever, but it would still have that like old school charm. Like that would be the boldest thing they could do. Or like whatever the next Dragon Quest would be, which I think it would actually fit better with Dragon Quest at this point, because they actually technically already did it with the 3DS version, right?
Yes, for 10?
For
no,
11.
11. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, like, I would also like to see maybe like the remember the Final Fantasy Legend games that came out?
Yes.
Which I think is like technically part of a different series. I think you would know better than I would, but I think those are part of a different series. But still, like, if you colorize them and put them in this cool new art style, I think that would go a long way for those games.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could actually see that. I was thinking of when I mentioned the three styles. The games like Lost Prophet and Oninaki. How they had those small team games that they were making. They were like new IPs.
Yeah.
And then you have this 2D HD. Now I don't want to discount Bravely Default because that was 3DS. And that is a whole different style. I think with Bravely Default, they took the gameplay and merged it in a sense with the HD 2D. The 2D HD, I should say. Because of Octopath Traveler. That's kind of where it came from.
Yeah.
But then they also took Saga Frontier, which was a game that Live Alive kind of inspired from. So a lot of the games kind of connect. But seeing it in those kind of styles, you'd be like, wow, Square Enix really, I guess brought new IPs and new ideas. So why, and then brought new graphics. So this 2D HD right now kind of only belongs to them until other developers start maybe get inspired to use it. But right now, it's so fitting for them that I think if we're going to look at it, I think the sale numbers have proven to Square Enix that we are willing to take these games on with that style. Even with Octopath Traveler hitting Game Pass, people jumped on it because they were so interested to see what this game was about. I mean, PC players also and everything, but everybody from the Nintendo perspective, which is like, hey, Microsoft gamers community, if it came to Game Pass, play it so you can understand why we love this game and why we love the style.
Yeah, and I mean, you could even go so far as like, I know that there's a rumor that Final Fantasy Tactics is finally getting remastered after all these years. I hope they go like a full on kind of the way they did with War of the Lions. I kind of hope they just port that version. I think that it is a superior version of that game. But
is it the same game with more content?
it's it's the same game, but it also implements a storyline from Final Fantasy 12, and it includes Final Fantasy 12 characters in it. And it kind of like because they take place. Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy 12 take place in the same world of Ivalice. So, or Ivalice, I think is how it's pronounced. I always said Ivalice, but I think it's called Ivalice. I mean, you know, when you grow up kind of saying things and then you hear someone say it the correct way, and you're like Ninja Gaiden was how we always said it, right? Until somebody said, no, it's Ninja Gaiden. And I'm like, oh gosh, I've been saying it wrong my whole life. But I think you could even look at Final Fantasy Tactics Advance and A2, right? And remake them in this art style and maybe release it as an entire package at some point, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know. I think that this art style is cool. I would rather them go the Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy route instead of remaking things. Even you know who I would actually like to see do this, use this engine is Tokyo RPG Factory, which is the studio that did I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphere and what was that third game they did, the action RPG?
Oninaki.
Yeah, Oninaki. Yeah. And so I would actually like to see them because they do a great job of like that style of SNES PS1 RPG.
Yeah. And a lot of people like I got all three games. Like I love their games. You know. I
liked I Am Setsuna a lot. I didn't play the other two though.
Yeah. I mean, they're good like surprisingly good 25 to 30 hour RPGs in the sense. And not to, even though this is where this is not part of everything, but even Voice of Cards, even though that's not 2D HD, I'm loving this kind of card game RPG style that I'm like, this is not supposed to work, but it does, and it's addictive. You know.
I almost wonder if it would be interesting to demake some things, you know, like quote unquote demake instead of remake. Like you take a 3D, like a PS1 RPG, for example, like, I don't know, take Final Fantasy 9, for example, and like make a sprite based RPG out of this game.
Ooh, yes.
You know, like I'm not saying to do that. I would actually like a Final Fantasy 7 style remake of 9, to be honest, instead of like a demake. But I think that's like that would be like a neat thing to do.
Yes, and not for it to be on mobile or a gotcha mobile game. No, just we're talking about a full game on these consoles.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's interesting things you could do with that engine. I would just rather them make new things instead of old things.
Yeah, and I think because Squaresoft and Enix, ever since they merged, Enix has a lot of IPs that Square could actually jump into.
Oh, you know what? You know what they could do? Honestly, it would be like a Valkyrie Profile or something. Would be really cool.
Yes. I feel like a lot of people missed that because I missed it, but I know of it. And I would love to replay it in that style.
I really liked that first game, and then they made a game for PSP that was pretty good. I never played Silmaria, which was the PS2 game. I owned it, but I never played it. But yeah, I mean, they could even do something like that. Would be awesome.
Yeah,
I'm looking at Enix games right now. Illusion of Gaia would be interesting.
Yes. That was the last Enix game that I played on the Super Nintendo, and I rented it, and I was just like, dang, I wish I would have bought this game from Blockbuster before they closed down.
Yeah, I mean, you know what other games they could do in this style, and I know the new one is coming out soon, but Star Ocean 1 and 2 they could do in this art style.
Ooh, yes. Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah, Star Ocean 1 and 2 because the PlayStation version is a mess of a game. But I will pay some money to make that a collection.
mhm.
And I will pay the 70, 60 or $70 or whatever
Well,
they want to charge to get this game.
well, when they've re-released 1 and 2, usually they've been a collection. They were a collection on PSP, I think.
Okay.
I think it was like First Runner and Second Story, I think, were the PSP games.
Yeah.
I have so many just so much stupid knowledge in my head that I just don't understand where or how it's stored in there, but
Hey, it helps me.
so I know this would never happen and it actually would probably never work because of what system it came out on. But they could do like a really interesting Mischief Makers platformer out of this art style.
Yes. Come through, treasure.
Remember Mischief Makers? How like everybody hated it because it was a 2D platformer on the Nintendo 64?
I loved it.
Well, yeah, but you did. But I'm just saying, like,
Oh,
man,
yeah.
that's just like,
Oh, dude, I'm waiting for that to drop on Nintendo 64 online. Come on through. Come, treasure. Come through, treasure.
Mhm.
That's the acquisition that Nintendo needs, is buying treasure.
Man. Good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
But yeah, that's kind of like what I really have for news. There's not too much news that's dropping just yet. We're going to be talking more stuff when it comes to Nintendo Pow Block. But before we go, just a quick question that I want to ask you, Corey. And I think I presented this question to you earlier, and I kind of want to get your thoughts. So everybody know that Elden Ring has dropped. The reviews have came out. Right now, I think it's sitting at a 94 or 95 on Metacritic. And one of the comparisons that happened to is that everybody used Breath of the Wild, for its reviews. And I kind of want to ask you, do you think it's fair that Nintendo games get used in a lot of reviews for comparisons or examples to give the idea of what people would experience?
It just depends on comparisons are made across the board in a lot of games. It doesn't necessarily have to be Nintendo games, but I know Breath of the Wild has been brought up a lot because Horizon just came out, right? And I know that I think they added some sort of glider, right?
Yeah.
I know they added some sort of glider, and they added climbing style. Right, they added you can kind of climb anything now, right? I think I don't know. I haven't played it yet because I don't have a PlayStation 5, and I honestly don't plan on getting one anytime soon. But I know they added a lot of features that were pretty prevalent in Breath of the Wild, which is funny because we just talked about this on the Boss Rush podcast. Where Horizon has taken a lot of things from Breath of the Wild, but you look at that game. God, that game is so beautiful. That game is one of the best looking games I think I've ever seen. And I love Breath of the Wild, but man, what I wouldn't give for Nintendo to just develop a Zelda game that looks like that. I would give mine. I would give up a lot of things to see a Zelda game look like that. Which reminds me, remember the Wii U demo that they showed off?
Yeah.
The Zelda demo that they showed off, that this is what Zelda could potentially look like on the Wii. God, man. Could have had that. Again, Breath of the Wild, beautiful game, great game. Nintendo knows how to utilize their hardware, but Horizon is we've seen some games this generation that I can't believe, even 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed that games could look this good. It's just... remember when Nintendo 64 came out and games went from 2D to 3D, and it was games are never gonna look better than this. Well,
people don't understand technology.
But yeah, I think comparisons are fair. I think Nintendo games are used a lot because I think most people enjoy at least a select handful of Nintendo titles, right? Like Zelda or Mario. And if it fit, like Elden Ring is being compared to Breath of the Wild because of its open world and you can kind of go anywhere and kind of do what you want as long as you're good enough, right? I think is what people are kind of saying about it. And I think that's a fair comparison because that's exactly what Breath of the Wild did, right? I mean, they kind of Zelda kind of like after you kind of think about it, they kind of urge you to go one way, but you can totally like, because you can go right and go to the Temple of Time, right, and kind of start out doing the, right, because when you get off the Great Plateau, you can kind of go down to the right and talk to the old man at the bottom of the hill and start your, what do you call them? The towers. Adventure. The towers, kind of getting your powers and everything. But you can totally go left and not get any of the powers and start kind of like just messing around.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing with Breath of the Wild that Elder Ring doesn't do in a sense. Because me and you had this talk a lot of times about Breath of the Wild that it's a scientific game. Like it plays around with physics, it plays around with chemistry.
It's a systems heavy game, right? Like there's a lot of like weather effects that affect the environment, and then there's a lot of physics and a lot of like, okay, well, there's a lot of like shrines that involve electricity, right? So you need to make sure you have like metal weapons in there to like toss down, or make sure maybe you don't want metal weapons so you don't get electrocuted, right? Like there's a lot of things like that.
Did you see that video of that person?
Oh, the naked run.
Yeah,
I
that
saw
they're
that.
using like ice thing.
They're using the ice wand to get through one of the shrines that has a lot of fire and lava and stuff, and they're like you can make it as long as you're naked or something. It was pretty funny.
Yeah,
I
and
saw
it's
that.
just like it's that kind of stuff that I think reviewers don't get, even though it's a general premises with I'm just using Elden Ring because of why this discussion came up, because everybody was just like, oh, here go the Breath of the Wild comparisons. But it kind of shows that when a game kind of like Breath of the Wild, even Paper Mario, because like Bug Fables, when people were reviewing it, they were using that style of Paper Mario, of its graphics and stuff. And I think it's just that I think when certain Nintendo games are influential, it's easier to make that comparison. When to make that general comparison, to give that understanding, it's a comprehension thing. That this is something like this. Okay, I'm able to comprehend, but they don't. Sometimes I think reviewers don't show the separate part of it, like. Breath of the Wild did something different with Zelda because it's a new take on open world, going anywhere, the science stuff. And Elden Ring, for right now, it still has that challenge, and they're doing some different things. But this is a new path from software, and that's where it is. It doesn't do all the things that Breath of the Wild does. And I think
but it's not trying to be. It's trying to be an open world Dark Souls game, which is like. I know like it's getting 10s and everything, but like I've played enough Dark Souls and enough Bloodborne to know that like those games just aren't for me, right? So like it's hard for me to be excited about Elden Ring or even talk about it, to be honest with you. Like I don't care. Like I'm not trying to like put the game down or anything. I'm just saying like I don't care about Elden Ring because I don't care about Dark Souls, and I know that this is literally to a T a well-polished open world Dark Souls game.
Yeah.
And that's great. And I hope everybody who loves Dark Souls and Bloodborne loves this game. I really do. Yeah. It's just, it's not for me. I just don't.
Yeah. And I actually said, because I put it on my Twitter, that I'm not knocking the game or anything, and I hope people do enjoy it. But I just hope that when people play it and they talk about it, that people be respectable about it. If not saying you or anything.
No, I know. I think there's a lot of like misconception on the internet where like if you aren't excited for a game, or you just say you're not excited or don't care about it, it means you're putting it down. And I really try to not do that. I mean, I think I'm just saying, like, Elden Ring is for a certain group of people, and that certain group of people is getting bigger and bigger every day, right? Dark Souls is such a niche game, but, like, that niche is growing to the point where, like, it's just going to be, you know, you have your Call of Duty gamer, you have your Madden gamer, and now you have your Dark Souls player. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of like,
right.
You know, and certain people are excited for it, and I just hope certain people who have pre-ordered the game and have purchased the game based off of reviews know what they're getting into, because I know that, like, if you have never played a Dark Souls game before, this game is going to be very frustrating and very upsetting to some people because of how hard these games can be.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to be reviews and you haven't tried the games that these reviewers are mentioning, if you haven't tried Breath of the Wild at this time, it's a good way to jump in to get an understanding on why they make that comparison. And really, Breath of the Wild eases you on how to learn about it, and then pay attention to be like, okay, if this is done with me doing this, and this is the outcome, maybe I could change it up. And it gives you that freedom to find your own solution to whatever problem or whatever place that you want to get to.
Yeah.
And everything. And like I said, they're both great games. Regardless of what the ratings are, regardless of what people say or think, they're both great games. You mentioned Horizon, a really great game. You know,
I mean, Horizon's my favorite PlayStation franchise. Like, it's awesome. Like that and Uncharted, and I know that's like very, like, for some reason that's very I don't know. I'm stupid for saying that, but because it's not God of War or The Last of Us, like.
No, but I'm like, Horizon was a surprising new IP from Guerrilla Games for them to use that engine. And look, like, I have to give it its props. It looks gorgeous on PlayStation 5, but it also looks gorgeous on PlayStation 4. Like, I'm not even worried about the frame rate and stuff, because the frame rate has been set 30 on my TV, and the game looks good. I'm like, this is beautiful.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what you get. I mean, Horizon is a PlayStation 4 first game, right? I think a lot of people know that. It was developed to be a PlayStation 4 only game until, like, the last, I think until, like, 6 months before the PlayStation 5 was revealed, and they knew they weren't going to get it out in time, that they decided to, like, start putting a few little extra bells and whistles for the PlayStation 5 version, which, like, don't get me wrong, the PlayStation 4 version looks amazing, right?
Yes.
And I think the PlayStation 5 version, it added, like, the 60 frames a second, which is awesome. I think there's ray tracing in it, I think, on certain modes, right? And you know, I think Horizon 2 is, like, one of the best looking games I've ever seen. Like, it's I've gone on record saying I'm not going to get a PlayStation 5 until they make it smaller and there's enough games out that I want for it to, like, really have one. But also, I said Horizon was the game I was going to get a PlayStation 5 for, so, like, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do at this moment, but yeah, that's, like, I know Destiny just came out and I'm really, like, neck deep into that, and I'm kind of playing Pokemon Legends. I started that and also restarted Xenoblade, so I'm kind of into those two also. But man, Horizon is, like, I'm really sad I'm not playing Horizon right now.
Yeah. And I don't want to discount Microsoft, because I think when some of their games get reviewed in Nintendo issues.
Well, I mean, we talked about Microsoft having a killer end of the year last year with Psychonauts, Forza, and Halo. Like, Halo is amazing. Halo's a great Halo game, you know?
Yeah.
And Psychonauts is an awesome platformer. And I'm so glad that game got the love that it deserved, you know? And even Flight Simulator last year, right? Like, that came out on Xbox. And the problem with Xbox right now is they don't have anything for this year right now. Like, Redfall was supposed to be, like, Q2, I think, and I think it's going to get pushed. And Xbox really doesn't have anything except for Tunic, really.
Well, that is true.
Which is fine, but, like, no offense, Tunic's not going to sell systems. Horizon's going to sell systems. And Pokemon is going to sell systems and whatever else
And
Nintendo has coming out the next day. It feels
well,
like.
the thing I was thinking about was like Metro Prime 4, and because they got all these other developers, I would love to see a review that shows that Halo Infinite was inspired. Metro Prime 4 was inspired by Halo Infinite. I would love to see what did you guys do to this game to have that comparison. That would be an interesting discussion if that
Well,
if that does happen.
I think that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be way more modernized as a first-person shooter than I think people either want it to be or expect it to be. You know, like, I mean, the campaign is probably going to be like a lot of exploration, right? But I think it's going to have a lot of action in it.
Yes.
And I know there's a rumor right now where that the first game is getting a ground-up remake for this year, which would be cool. But I think the fourth game is going to be way different than the first game.
Oh yeah.
In terms of like how much action there is in it, and yeah, it's going to be, you're going to explore, right? You're going to solve some puzzles, but there's going to be a lot more action, and I think people are going to expect that.
Yeah, I think, I know for me, I'm not worried about the action. I want to see the level design. I want to, because I'm just like, y'all come, some of the develops come from these big three titles. I'm just like, and I keep, because when I keep going back to say, when you find out that Halo, Call of Duty, and Battlefield, some of the developers who made those games come together to work on a Metroid game, that's an impossible dream that you would think that would happen. And I know you guys probably just you guys got some great games with some great levels. So I want to see what happens.
The fact that you, like, they had a Call of Duty, what was it there? Like their lead kind of action. What is it called? I forget what his title was, but it involved like their combat, their lead combat director, and then like Battlefield's one of their combat leads came over to work on it too, right? Like those two people that they hired right there tell me that this is going to have a lot of combat in it.
Yeah, and I think because of that, new weapons, like this is going to be a totally different Samus. Yeah. Now, whether we like it or not, we don't know, because I still feel like E3 is going to be a major thing for Nintendo. But we're gonna wrap it up because I had to ask that question because I just been thinking about it. Just like, I know people may be tired of the Breath of the Wild comparisons when it comes to open world games, but I'm just like, Nintendo games get used a lot for comparisons for reviews, and there's people who just do their own personal reviews who use Nintendo games, and nothing's wrong with that. To me personally, nothing is wrong with that. To give that ideas for comprehension and stuff. So before we go, Corey, any last thoughts or anything?
Nope. Just I'm excited to talk Nintendo, and I'm just tired because it's almost 1:00. Okay. But I'm excited to kind of be back in a sense and talk Nintendo every week again, and kind of just hang out with you every week again, and it's something I missed a lot.
I agree. Well, everybody, that has been Expansion Pass. I have been your host, Eddie V. You guys can find me on Twitter at @ThatBretcherCode. You can check out more content at bossrush.net. And check up on our YouTube page at Boss Rush Network, and check us out on Anchor FM. Corey, go ahead and plug.
You can find me at I am Corey HT on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find me hosting the Boss Rush podcast every Monday, I guess. Yeah, on podcast feeds, and if you're into Destiny, I host a Destiny show called Tower Casuals, which you can catch also.
Yes. And with that, everybody, we will see you next time on Expression Pass. Bye, everybody.